let's get started. First, welcome to Detroit Public Library, main library on Woodward Avenue in Detroit. And also welcome to Color of Sci-Fi. This is an event to celebrate science fiction in all its colors. So I'm glad that you all are here. My name is Donna Jackson. I am the creator of Color of Sci-Fi, but also the founder of DMJStudio, which is a group of people that create things that matter to us as women, as people of color, as urban dwellers, and as part of this universe. So I'm glad to see you all here. Today is the opening of the Color of Sci-Fi art exhibit. And this is the second time we've done this. We did one in 2024, and I'm living in the future, 2023, and now we're here in 2024. And this year we decided to focus on one of the larger sci-fi franchises, Star Trek, with a even more focus on our characters of Lieutenant Uhura and Captain Sisko. So I'm very excited that we're doing that. Outside of the art exhibit, which will be up until November 30th, we also have two amazing authors, artists, writers here to talk about their work. First, specifically from the Star Trek point of view, but then, of course, from all the other things that they are working on. So we will definitely get to that and have fun in that conversation. But before we go to talk to our authors, I wanted to take a little moment to, again, celebrate some of the characters from Star Trek, specifically Nichelle Nichols, which at least I could say from my perspective, is the door opener for me. My mom introduced Star Trek to me, and of course, seeing someone that looked like me in Star Trek, it's like, and knowing that, oh, this was made in the 60s, like that was a big deal to me. So to start off today, I wanted to read a little bit from Angela Dalton's To Go Boldly, How Nichelle Nichols and Star Trek Help Advance Civil Rights. I'm not reading the whole thing because I want you to go buy it or tell the library to pick it up and get it in the library, but I will read part of it. So, Brian, let me know when you're ready. Ready? So again, showed you the cover here. It's To Boldly Go, from How Nichelle Nichols and Star Trek Help Advance Civil Rights. You all did story time, you know how it goes. This is just the illustrations are beautiful. That's why I want to make sure you see some of these pages. So first page here, and I think a lot of us can remember something like this. It was TV night, the best night, and I could hear the click, click, clicking of buttons as Dad searched for the right channel. Remember the little dials? As the sweet, syrupy goodness of red Kool-Aid splashed into my glass, I knew the real treat was yet to come. Mom, Dad, and I settled into place, and as the opening began, I followed along out loud. Space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the Star Trek Enterprise. Its 5-year mission to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilizations, to boldly go where no man or woman has gone before. The show was Star Trek, and we instantly fell under the spell of watching Captain James T. Kirk and his crew make peace and live in harmony with different life forms across the galaxy. But he wasn't the reason why we watched. We watched to see Lieutenant Uhura perform her duties as the starship's communications officer. Lieutenant Uhura was played by actress Nichelle Nichols, and we burst with pride seeing someone who looked like us standing as an equal, um, to make the future better for everyone. This was important, not just to my family, but for all Black people, because our reality told a very different story. I'm going to skip a couple pages, so you can skip, because I want you to buy it. The blue page, there's an orange page, you can skip that. There's a page with her in black and blue, you can skip that. And then I'm going to read this page about her childhood. Okay. Even as a little girl, Nichelle was confident. Her parents had taught Nichelle and her siblings that they could become whatever they wanted, and nobody could tell them otherwise. Growing up in a home filled with music, books, and love for art, Nichelle knew at 5 years old what she would grow up to be, a performer. But at 7, Nichelle became very ill and spent a month in the hospital. When she finally began to recover, Nichelle's doctor told her she needed exercise to regain her strength. Her parents enrolled her in ballet, and she fell in love with it quickly, proving to everyone she was a natural talent. But even with her talent, she was still reminded that racist people would always try to make Black people feel like they were less than white people. Remembering what her parents taught her made Nichelle determined to prove this way of thinking was wrong. And she did. Nichelle danced ballet for many years. So we're going to go to a few other pages. Can you turn to this one? Got it? So she went to an event, and I'm starting after the event. The next evening, Nichelle appeared at a fundraiser as a special guest. As her eager fans gathered around her, the event host approached her. Nichelle, there is someone who would like to meet you, the host explained. He's a big fan of Star Trek and Uhura. Turning around, Nichelle locked eyes with the fan. Is this happening? She thought to herself. Was it really him? Standing before her was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Yes, he said, I am that fan. So that's all I'm reading. The rest of the book, it goes into just how what turned out after having that conversation, and also all of the different things that Ms. Nichols did after Star Trek, so Star Trek and beyond, because life did not stop after Star Trek. So again, thank you to Angela Dalton for writing this book, and Lorene Semmer, she is the illustrator of this book. So please, please, please make sure you call your library and say pick it up, or you can pick it up yourself and buy it, because you can never go wrong with buying a good story illustrated book. So thank you for giving me a chance to read that. And let's go on to the go on. All right. I want to read a little bit about the two authors that are here, Mr. Stephen Barnes, Steve, and Mr. Tyler Attico, Derek. So Stephen Barnes, I have to do this, the official reading of bios. Stephen Barnes is the New York Times bestselling author of over 30 novels of science fiction, horror, and suspense. The Image, Endeavor, and Cable Ace Awards winning author also writes for television, including The Twilight Zone, Stargate SG-1, Andromeda, and an Emmy Award winning episode of The Outer Limits. He also has taught at UCLA, Seattle University, and lectured at the Smithsonian Institute in Washington, D.C. with his wife, British Fantasy Award winning author, Tananarive Due. Thank you. I did not want to get that wrong. He has created online courses in Afrofuturism, Black horror, and screenwriting. Steve was born in Los Angeles, California, and except for a decade in the Northwest and 3 years in Atlanta, Georgia, has lived in that area all his life. So welcome, Mr. Steve Barnes.
Thank you.
And Derek Tyler Attico is a speculative fiction author, essayist, and award-winning photographer. In fiction, Derek has won the Excellence in Playwriting Award from the Dramatists Guild of America, and he is a two-time winner of the Star Trek Strange New Worlds short story contest, published by Simon & Schuster. Derek is also the author of a best-selling, critically acclaimed Star Trek novel, The Autobiography of Benjamin Sisko, by Titan Publishing. Outside of Star Trek, his short stories appear in Double Trouble and Turning the Tide with the International Association of Media Tie-In Writers, the NASA Expo Planet Science Institute of Caltech, and Thrilling Adventure Yarns from Crazy 8 Press, amongst other things. Derek is also a contributing writer for the Star Trek Adventures tabletop role-playing game and a role-playing game designer. With a degree in English and history, Derek is an advocate of the arts, human rights, and inclusion. So again, thanks for Derek Tyler Attico. So let's get going. We're gonna talk Star Trek first, and then we're gonna let you all just have a great conversation, okay? So personal story, I've read both the Autobiography of Benjamin Sisko, and I also read Far Beyond the Stars. And both of you wrote about a particular character, Benjamin Sisko, also known in Far Beyond the Stars as Benny Russell. And just wanted to get a little bit of your thoughts about the character that you wrote about, like how you felt about it or him, or just what you created with the story that you wrote. And either of you who wants can start that conversation.
Go ahead, Derek.
Okay, well, I should say that I am also a reader of the novelization of Far Beyond the Stars, which is a fantastic novelization. Well, if we're talking about Benjamin Sisko, I don't think you can talk about Benjamin Sisko without first at least discussing Avery Brooks, Mr. Avery Brooks, who personified Benjamin Sisko. There is no one else that could play that role. For me to write that character, I very early on, I realized that there was nothing I could go to in Mr. Brooks's earlier work to relate to a younger Benjamin Sisko, where Avery Brooks has done phenomenal work on television with A Man Called Hawk, with Spencer for Hire, with other pieces. What he's doing on Deep Space Nine is completely different than what he has done anywhere else. So I couldn't kind of lift a younger Avery Brooks for Benjamin Sisko. So that was my first challenge. And then to get the correct intonation, the correct grammar, I found myself leaning a lot on the episode In the Pale Moonlight. I watched that episode 3 times back to back. And then after watching that, I didn't watch any more Deep Space Nine until I completed the book. And something that Benjamin always says to Jake is that he's not a writer. His son is the writer, you know? And whereas Benjamin is not always eloquent, he is very much so, he is the everyday man, the everyman. And so I tried to channel that a lot in the words and thoughts and deeds of Benjamin Sisko. And then Benny Russell is a whole different animal because he's an author from 1950s writing all of this. And so it wasn't that difficult to get into Benny Russell's headspace, being an author or being a Black man writing in the in the 2020s. So the Benny Russell character was very easy for me to write. The Benjamin Sisko a little bit more difficult, but once I was in that groove, it was very, very easy to get the character going.
You know, I have to be honest. I watched the original, series of Star Trek. I've enjoyed several of the iterations and all the movies, but I was not particularly. I wasn't glued in front of Deep Space Nine every week. So when I got a phone call asking if I would be interested in taking a script that had been written, I forget the name of the author of the script. Anyone's got a copy of the book here, Far Beyond the Stars. Who wrote the script?
I believe Ira Stephen Bear wrote the script.
No, it's
Who's the?
No, let me see the book. Okay, so the teleplay was by Ira Stephen Bear and Hans Bimler, with a story by Mark Scott Zachary. Now I knew Mark Scott Zachary, and they asked me whether or not I would be interested in writing it. And I have questions about how long would I have, would my resources be, how much money you want to pay me? Oh, that's not bad at all. How long do I have to write it? A month. I wrote this in 1 month.
Wow.
So I was living in a side-by-side duplex with my soon-to-be ex-wife. When my daughter got out of school, she'd come over to my side, and then when my wife got home from work, she'd go over there. And we were on very, very good terms. But I said to Tony, I said, I have this opportunity here to do something. If you will take all of my responsibilities, I don't have to do anything except write. That's all I have to do. If you will do that, we're going to have ourselves a really nice Christmas. So she said, okay. So I have to admit that the writing of the book was a little bit of a blur. Taking a 55-page screenplay and turning it into a 271-page novel, that's a lot of vamping. And I knew I couldn't do it. So how do I expand this out? So I decided I'd expand it out with a backstory. Okay, so I knew that the clock would start ticking when they delivered the script to me and the contracts were signed. So before that ever happened, I got my research into play. I did research on the World's Fair in 1930 something. I forget when it was. And I knew what my story was going to be. And I had that all worked out. So the first 2 weeks were nothing but writing without any rewriting. I didn't check grammar, spelling, anything. It was purely just flow. Just from the time I wake up in the morning. Well, I'd exercise first thing, and then I would just sit and I would write all day long until I had a certain number of words. It was something like, if I'm figuring on it's going to be about 100,000 words, and I had 2 weeks to do it. It's 14 into 100,000 is whatever that is. That's how many words I had to rough out every day. By not worrying about the spelling or the grammar or anything else, I was able to stay out of the editing side of my brain, which is the part that puts the brakes on. So what I'm saying is that I spent 2 weeks writing the first draft, and then took 1 day off, and then spent a week polishing it, and then another week refining the polish. That was all the time I had. So I didn't have time to think deeply about the characters. What I had to do is I had to trust that if I did this to the best of my ability, that my unconscious competence would handle that. That I've put in the work such that I don't have to think about it beyond a certain point. It was asking myself, can I design a book that I can write in the time that I have that will accomplish what needs to be accomplished here? And I thought, yeah, I can do that. The motivations were there. The money, always a good thing. The fun of doing it, and then dealing with Avery Brooks, who was the first fully realized black man I'd seen on television in some interesting ways. Hawk on Spencer for Hire was unlike anything. He was unlike Scotty on I Spy, although Cosby in I Spy, that was a fantastic role. It was not quite like Greg Morris, Barney on Mission Impossible. although Barney on Mission Impossible was a badass. You know, he was the most competent member of that team. He could do anything that the others could do, but they could not do what he did. But the opportunity to make a statement, to do something that contributed to the literature from a very specific point of view, you know, from my perspective on it, was feeling like a valid use of my skills and my heart, and something that I could be proud of if I pulled it off. So I can't tell you really very much what I was thinking about Benjamin and Benny and stuff like this, because I didn't have time.
Wow.
To be feeling it, you know, I let my hindbrain kind of do that while I was focused on let's get this done, you know. And it's just a matter of knowing where I'm going, visualizing the scene. Every day I would visualize the scenes I had to do. Notice I'm kind of rolling my eyes up, throwing myself into alpha state, and then I'm typing, you know. And just it's going directly from the vision to the page without a lot of stopping at phrasing or this or that. And the interesting thing is that that it really is a matter of constantly, I think that I was just talking to Cully, I think, who invited me here, that from one point of view, I have a lot of different perspectives on success because I was obsessed with making it. You know, I had this sense that if I could not succeed, life would crush me. But my mother also told me, Steve, if you let white people know how smart you are, they will kill you. And so I was caught in the middle of, I have to succeed, but I can't stand up. So if you want to know why somebody like me would spend over 5 decades practicing killing people, I have 3 black belts and stuff like that. That's what it was. It's like, how do I survive this? You know, the world was a lot like pogo sticking through a minefield. And the people who put the mines there kept telling me that there were no mines. So just pogo stick wherever you want. It's okay. All that's in the past. Ha ha ha. Yeah, right. It's always been a matter of what move do I make here and how will this work here. So I'm extraordinarily calculating, but I'm not cold. It's trying to figure out, how do I use my mind right? How do I use my heart right? What kind of energy do I need? This felt to me like a step in the right direction. So it was honoring the kid I was that started this journey, and it also felt like I was honoring my ancestors.
I felt it in the read too.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I wanted that so much. I'm so aware. My father was a backup singer for Nat King Cole.
Okay.
I was in the studio on a couch while he recorded the backup for Ramblin' Rose. And every time I hear it on the radio, I imagine I can hear my dad's voice there. But he could perform in hotels in Vegas where he could not walk through the front door, could not stay in the hotel. So I knew that whatever pain I was going through in my life, I was blessed in comparison to what my father had been through and what his father had been through. And that my life is the hope and the dream of the slave. I'm aware of that. I don't have the right not to do the best I can do. I don't have the right to let hateful people make me hate. I have responsibilities. I have tried to write in a way that both my ancestors and my descendants would be proud of me.
Well, I know you did a very amazing job with
Kind of a
this.
rambling answer, but
No. We're good with a ramble, but I do think, and I think I wrote in a note to you all, was that when I was reading it, I had to turn and in both cases, I had to turn over to make sure, was I reading a Star Trek novel, which is a good thing because there was so much humanity in it.
some people have said something similar about the Star Wars novel.
Oh, well.
Yeah, I had somebody say, this is both the most and least Star Wars novel I've ever read in my life.
It's not a bad.
That's not a bad thing. You know, it's a Steve Barnes novel. All I can do is who I am. I can't be somebody else.
Well, talking about.
Can I just
Yeah,
respond to
please
that?
do.
I just want to say that I can relate to so much of what you're saying because I've written short stories for a long time.
That's how you learn your craft.
That's how I learn your craft.
That's
short
how you learn.
stories, and I've done that for 15 plus years, right?
Good for you.
Short story. So when I got the call for this, and I actually wrote a Benny Russell short story, which Titan looked at, and they thought that'd be a good fit for this, right? So when I got the call for this, I was very aware and very cognizant of the fact that once it was announced that I was writing it, there were forums saying, well, can a black guy even write Star Trek for novels, for novels, and it's been such a long time since someone of color had.
But boy, they sure play basketball.
And so I realized that it wasn't just something I was doing for myself, whereas I always want to do the best work possible, but you want to show that if you're in that role, if you're in that position, to not just speak for yourself, but to speak for others, to show that we can do it with poise and grace.
Look, man, to a degree, all art is self-expression.
Absolutely.
Capital S, big self. Who are you really? There are two questions in art. Who are you and what is true? And all an artist can do is have an opinion about that and a position about that and express that in their work. This is what I think human beings are. This is what I think reality is. As artists of color, we have some additional responsibilities, I think, when you realize that, garbage collection in some ways is more important than writing. Because if you stop collecting the garbage in 6 weeks, that's a gestation period for rats. You got to resolve the strike in 6 weeks. The Writers Guild went on strike for 2 years, and nobody even noticed hardly because they were running reruns. So I understand that we're in a very exalted position, that art is important if it serves the people who are paying the taxes. The people who are picking up the garbage. They're the ones that I have an obligation to. It's yes, I'd love to just write anything I want to. In addition to that, as a black man, I have additional responsibilities unless I deliberately decide to walk away from them. There are people who can do that, and I've been encouraged to do that. I could have made a lot more money if I had, although I made good money anyway. Ultimately, you ask yourself, what are you prepared to live for? The even better question, the more empowering question is, what are you prepared to die for? Okay? The most important, the martial arts are, other than the question thing I'm about to say, martial arts are mostly just sweaty exercise. Okay? The real question is the thing that is the most empowering position for a warrior. I'm ready to die and I'm ready to take you with me. That position is found in the heart of every mother protecting her child. See, it's not a male position. Men do more of that because it makes reproductive sense. You don't put your women out to die or your tribe dies out. But it has nothing to do with whether men or women are stronger or smarter or more courageous or whatever. Artists are not more than the people collecting the garbage. Everyone goes quietly insane every night. All artists do is tap into that river of insanity. If I get the right to wake up every morning and tap into that river of insanity, I had better the hell pull something out of that river that helps the people who don't have that privilege. Does that make sense? That as one of my mentors said, that your book needs to be at least as entertaining as a 6-pack of beer, because they cost about the same thing. So I am writing for me, but if art is self-expression, successful art is self-expression plus communication. That someone on the other side feels the emotions you're trying to say. And art that enables you to actually make a living is art that communicates something that people are willing to trade their hard-earned money for time and time again. So if somebody picks up one of my books, I want them to feel, if I pick up a book by Stephen Barnes, he will be giving me something that feels good to me, that helps me make sense of my life, that modifies my stress levels so that I'm able to go out there and deliver goods or pick up the garbage or take care of my kids or teach or whatever it is. I get the privilege of dreaming for a living. I don't have the right to not care about the lives of the people who read my books. And as Octavia Butler and I were the only black science fiction writers in the world for 20 years, for 20 years, and Octavia and I lived walking distance from each other, so we talked about this a lot. We have obligations. If we're the only ones, then we have to make the way easier for the ones who come after. There are now more black science fiction writers and writers of color in the field than I can count. And some of them are better than me, and they're going to do much better than me, and I am so proud of them I could just cry, because it felt unspeakably lonely. But I knew that if I could find a way to keep going, I could find a way to not be embittered by this. If I could be me, if I could not, illegitimize non carborundum, if I could not let the bastards drag me down, that my fight was a fight that my ancestors would be proud of.
Well, you opened the door for Derek to do what he's doing.
Sure.
Like, there,
Great.
You have to go into
Kick
stats.
ass, young man.
You have to go into stats, right? About who's written novels for Star Trek.
Okay.
But one thing to know, I'm grateful that it was you two that wrote these bookends for this particular character. But
Oh,
Derek,
God.
you were going to say something. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I'm just going to say I was around 18, 19, and I heard probably, it wasn't a watch, I heard a speech by James Baldwin, and he said it is the responsibility of an artist to be a mirror to society. And
To be what?
a mirror to society. And that, for some reason, I'd written before, but I was just starting to think seriously about it, and it resonated with me. And I was like, yeah, but that's the harder path, right? To be a mirror to society and to
No.
You don't think so?
No, it is harder in the moment, but when you look back over your life, it's a lot easier.
Yeah.
Because what happens, the first autographing I ever went to, I ever had, an old middle-aged white guy showed up, and he's in his 40s, I guess. He looked like crap. And he gave me his business card. His business card said freelance hack and literary mechanic. And he was dead of alcoholism within 18 months. You either stand up and be real, or you end up spending your money to help you forget how you earned it. I am happy with who I am. If my plane crashes on my way home, don't you dare be sorry for me. I got literally everything I wanted in childhood, okay? And part of that was to live a meaningful life, okay? So it feels harder to tell the truth short term, but it's a little like, do you tell the truth to your wife or a husband? It can be harder in the moment, but the only way to build a sound foundation in a relationship is two people who actually know each other.
Sure.
Otherwise, you spend all your time, oh God, if they knew the truth about me, they wouldn't, and I will sit up here and I'll tell you the truth, I don't give a shit. I don't care. What are you going to do? What could you possibly do or give me that's worth more than my feeling that I spent this moment in time being as honest as I could be to people who came out here to see me? What could, the part of me, that existential loneliness, that knowledge that I'm going to die. One of the only things that makes that worthwhile is a feeling like just for a little while, we share something real here together. We're having a few moments of something that's genuine. That's precious to me. I will fly thousands of miles for a moment like this. I mean that. All the trouble and the fatigue and getting into my hotel room at 1:30 in the morning and everything got mixed up. All of that is interesting. That's all the story. But when I write, I'm writing to you. Black, white, male, female, straight, gay, I don't care. I'm writing, I care about you because I see myself in you. And I say, I read books and it made my life better. I had teachers and they made my life better. How can I thank them? I cannot, other than to be the best I can be. If I want to be like them and they were givers, then I have to be a giver, right? Because that's the only way to walk their walk. So it seems to be harder. Like going to the gym is harder than sitting and watching episodes of Johnny Quest while you're eating caramel corn, which I love to do. But ultimately, it costs you so much more. You either have discipline, the pain of discipline, or the pain of regret.
Well, I
Or the pain of
agree.
telling the truth,
Right.
or the pain of trying to be clever in
No,
your writing.
I agree with that, but I think honesty and authenticity is not something that everyone does when they write.
Oh, of course,
It's just
absolutely.
not. And I think the readers can sniff it out.
Yes, I agree. Same as in a relationship.
Right. Same as
It's like, at this point, I've written over 3 million words of fiction. How could I lie about myself for 3 million words?
Right.
Every day on Facebook, I'm talking about my philosophy and I'm talking about I can't, and people know at some point they kind of think, Jesus Christ, he's been doing this every day for 10 years. How do I fake that? How can you can't. What you do is you try to make your feelings and your words and your actions all line up together.
Mm-hmm.
So in your writing, one of the things I said to one of my mentors, to Jerry Bernard, said, you can run out of clever, but you can never run out of the truth. Find a way to take what you really. And my wife Tananarive, who, damn her, is probably a better writer than me, but she deserves it. She started earlier. I didn't start until I was 8. She started when she was 4.
Oh.
But one of the things that she talks about is, or that I've extracted from what she talks about, is there's an emotional impulse that began the writing process. There's some emotion she wanted to convey. Her novel, The Reformatory, took her 7 years to write because there was so much pain in that. But she wanted to do the right thing by her ancestors. This was her family story. It was hard because it was supposed to be hard, damn it. This isn't easy. It's not easy to look at this and ask, why is the world this way? Why do we do this to each other? Why is there so much pain? You think those questions are easy? If they were easy, we'd already have solved this shit. This stuff is hard when you ask those questions. But when you lift the hard, the heavy thing, you get stronger. You get stronger. So life gets easy if you don't lie to yourself about the need to do the heavy lifting.
When you're writing those hard things, I know for me and for writing this book, it wasn't easy to pull out of myself some of the difficult and hard things that I needed for Benjamin to express in his life and for it to happen to him. So there were moments where I would write a passage or a chapter and I'd have a good cry after. So do you find that as well? Do you have those moments?
The reason, but one of the biggest things I got out of the martial arts is I'm not afraid to cry.
Right.
Publicly. I'll probably blubber before we're finished on this. Because my emotions are very close to the surface. But understand something, that you did that work when you were writing. Every single day I go through certain rituals to sort of cleanse the lens of my perception. There's meditation, there's movement, there's affirmation, incantations, things like this. And it's all asking myself, what do I need to be to tell the truth this day and to move my life one more step forward, to be a good father, be a good husband, so forth and so on. And that's all about how honest can I be? How powerful can I be? And that's going to come out in my writing.
Right.
Because if you're writing a horror novel, you write about what horrifies you. If you're writing a sexy novel, you write about what turns you on. If you do that, it works.
Right.
But you have to have the courage to actually put yourself out there and say, this is what I really get turned on by.
Right.
This is what really scares me. This is what really excites me. That's hard. It's so much easier to write the clever thing.
That's what I'm saying. It's so much easier.
Yeah,
right?
it's so much easier in the moment, just like it's easier to sit watching cartoons.
With the caramel corn.
Yeah.
Right.
That's right.
I don't want to mess with your flow, but can I interject some questions?
Absolutely.
Not from me. I have one from the audience. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Bring this back to Benjamin Sisko and Avery Brooks particularly. When you look at Deep Space Nine, that series is much different than all the rest of them because it's really the story of Sisko over 7 seasons.
Right.
And you said that you couldn't find a way of actually addressing the younger Sisko. You actually could if you look at that as a novel, as and if you look at how he deals with Jake, what I'm trying to get back to is that you both have been talking about the challenges of being authentic to your writing.
Well, you're right. I'm sorry. Sorry.
Trust me. I ramp up a lot. When you look at the challenge of actually being authentic to yourself, you can see that evident in the performance of Avery Brooks, who was not what the studio wanted initially for that character, which is the reason why he had hair and no goatee the first 3 seasons. And the fact that when he became more aggressive and more himself, they brought another black character on there as a possible substitution if they had to get rid of him as the lead of that show. And throughout the rest of the series, the last 4 seasons, which is actually the best 4 seasons of the entire show, you see him and the writers investing completely in an understanding of what a black man in this situation would do.
I've got to say something. I've got to interrupt you for just a second.
No, you don't, because I'm going to finish this because y'all been talking.
No, I wanted to ask you a question. It's not going to take very long. You do know that Deep Space Nine is what ended Avery Brooks's career and why that happened, don't you?
No, I know that Rick Berman ended his career. There's a difference.
No, I mean he made a decision and it was the right decision, but it ended his career in connection with that. I just that it was he put everything he had into that show. All I was doing is amplifying what you're saying. Now please continue.
Yeah. So I guess what I'm saying is when you talk about somebody being authentic to themselves, really focusing on that and being careful about how that story is rendered, because there are entire segments of episodes where you don't see a white face ever. There are 3, 4 black people, and don't dispute me. I can pull the seeds right off the top of my head and the episodes. I guess what I'm trying to say is, you think about that statement that he sacrificed himself for the quality of the work that he presented. And when you look at the body of the work that's left back, could you talk to the importance of that, both in the rendering that you do in this autobiography, but also as how you may look back at it as a work, as opposed to just doing the rope. I got a good gig, they're paying me well, I'm happy, and that and real.
Okay. Thank you, Derek.
Yeah,
you take that.
I take it. Okay. Well, I'll say to begin with, trying to use a younger Avery Brooks to write a younger Benjamin Sisko was kind of, if I'm gonna be really honest, it's kind of like a easy way out, because it was a way for me to try and channel and focus on his earlier work, on Avery Brooks's earlier work. By not being able to do that, what it allowed me to do was to completely focus on myself as a black man, the things I wanted to say as a black man, the things I wanted to say through Benjamin Sisko as a black man in his youth growing up. Now, to answer your question and to speak on Avery Brooks's work as Benjamin Sisko and how that reflects, I personally think it's bar none. I mean, I know there are, people have different series that they like the best, but I think for the next 30 years, for the next 100 years, I think that the work that was done on Deep Space Nine speaks for itself. There's a reason that elements of Deep Space Nine was used for recently for Picard. In many ways, Deep Space Nine is even though it was the first series that was done without Gene Roddenberry, it is very faithful and very true to what a lot of the things that Gene Roddenberry wanted for Star Trek and for that future. And it's also the first series where we're not going out and we're not exploring, and we're seeing other people from other races and other species come to us, and we're seeing that their opinions of us is not always great. And I think that's a beautiful thing, because that's more like the real world. That diversity that's out there coming to us and saying, hey, Federation, hey, Starfleet, we don't agree with the way you're doing it. You're doing it wrong. Right, whether that is right or wrong, that conversation needs to happen and needs to be had. And Deep Space Nine had that. And having Sisko and Avery Brooks as Benjamin Sisko in the helm of that allowed us to see a man of color, a Black man, helming all of that and literally saving the quadrant as the person that was running the war during the Dominion War. So I think it's a show that will forever stand the test of time.
Well, let me bring in this. I mean, I think one reason why both of these books were important is one, I mean, I guess there's always this desire that this person could come back and fill all of those gaps of story that we could not get because he's not there to do it in the way that he should. But these books give us a chance to see it, to see what could have been or could be. And I do think it's important that Black males did these stories. Like I don't, you're talking about authenticity. I don't think the stories could have been anywhere near authentic if it was done from a different, I just don't see that happening. So from that perspective, I'm glad that you both have done these. And I wanted to ask a question about the fact that, you know, you two males writing and the importance of writing from that perspective. Like, what are your thoughts around that? Needing more Black male voices out there writing things, not science fiction, definitely, but even in other genres, just where do you fall with that? What's the need? Is there a need? All of those
I
types
think
of
that
things.
there's a tremendous need. There was nothing, I've seen few things that dealt with fiction that hurt me more than watching the way they killed T'Challa in Black Panther and then replaced his energy with the women. Now that's very interesting, to the point where there is not a single fully functioning heterosexual Black man in the entire Marvel universe.
Mm.
They killed him. Not a single other one has even gotten so much as a kiss in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. That will only change when the decision makers change. The decision makers hire the writers and tell them what to write. So what we're seeing here is it wasn't until, do anybody know when the first movie had a Black man that had a love scene where that movie earned over $100 million? Anybody have an idea when that happened, finally? 2016. Creed was the first theatrical motion picture where a Black man had a love scene and the movie earned over $100 million. Denzel never managed to do it. Will Smith never managed to do it. Wesley never managed to do it. The movie, if you did that, it killed the box office. What's necessary is for the full spectrum of human experience to be involved in the conversation about what is it to be human. Because every group will try to say that they're better. That's just, we rule, you drool is just what everybody does. Whether you're talking about, once again, gay, straight, Black, white, male, female, everybody does that. So if you're excluded from the table, you're on the menu. Yes, absolutely. If we're talking about adventure stories, I know that I was dying inside trying to ask. I was raised by my mother and my sister, and I was dying inside asking myself, what is it to be a man? What in the world do I have to do to be a man? Because what I wanted was to be admired by the kinds of men I admired and desired by the kinds of women I desired. What do I need to do that?
But I think that's why this character speaks so loudly to so many of us, because you're looking for a mirror for you. From my perspective, I'm looking for something too out of that character that Avery Brooks created. I mean, I had a magnificent dad, so don't think. But there is the dad energy, the leadership energy, the human energy, all of these things that we were we saw these two-dimensional characters all the time. And then here comes this guy that just just changed that completely for us. And now I feel like that's why these books are so important, because there's not too many of that still.
Well, male energy is not just being gentle and supportive and nurturing.
Oh,
It's also saying, I'll
totally.
kill you if you mess with my family. That energy is there, okay? And if you take that in, one of the first things you have to do if you're going to oppress a group of people is destroy anybody who will die before they'll let you crush them. So that's the first thing you do. You kill off the warriors, and then you kill off anybody who exemplifies that energy. And I don't want to get into I'm not interested in the politics of this. There's a lot of politics around this right now. But I believe that that the Chinese way of looking at yin and yang, the masculine and feminine, is the dance that creates the Tao, the dance that creates reality. And those are not just, men are more than just male energy, women are more than just female energy, but we both contain them, and there are things that are attractive about those two energies and the way they fit together, either within a human being or between human beings. And if every character I looked at to try to understand what was it to be a male, whether it was Doc Savage or the Saint or James Bond or whatever it was, they were not just all white men, but they were white men written by white men, and when they talked about black men, they did it in an insulting way. That Tarzan, the reason you can't make a new Tarzan movie anymore, really, in my opinion, is that the core construct of Tarzan, the core conceit, is the most racist thing you can possibly do. It's saying that a white man raised by apes is better than a black man raised by geniuses. It's like, in Jungle Tales of Tarzan, Edgar Rice Burroughs says it directly. He says, white men have imagination, black men have little, animals have none. You can't get more racist than that. But I still needed it. I still needed it desperately. I was like, what is it to be a man? So the way I put it was this: I sacrificed my melanin on the altar of my testosterone. I'm trying to figure this out. So if I write a book, I have to remember that kid that I was, who was so desperate that he slept in a room lined with walls of just books about what is it to be, Conan the Barbarian, even though Conan would enter a town and be repulsed by the stench of Negroes. I mean, it's like how much damage was done to my psyche that I can't even calculate it. But I would like to make it a better world for the next Stevie. Can I make it a better world for the next ones to come along?
For me, it was kind of, well, it was definitely different. At the time when Deep Space Nine premiered, for black men on television, you had The Cosby Show, and I think you had maybe Homicide on the Street, and so either black men were in the role of being funny, or in a cop drama. There wasn't a black man that just embodied being a man, and I was raised by two women, and I've always had a lot of people telling me what being a man was. I always knew intrinsically, I don't know how, just maybe from the way I was brought up or whatever, but intrinsically, I knew that being a man meant that I should and could be empathetic and gentle, and that, you could F with me and find out. Because that's, and that arc and that full circle of being a man is what I've always been. But it was nice to, and I've always been that way, but to see the first time I actually saw that on television was in Benjamin Sisko.
Agree.
Right? Where he was empathetic, he was gentle, he had a son, he was caring and considerate, and then, F around and find out, right? And then, so in many ways, it wasn't, I don't want to say I needed validation, because I didn't, but it was a great affirmation. You're like, yeah, Derek, you're on the right path, because this guy has crazy energy, and he's a captain. He's always been a captain, whether he was commander or not. He's just a captain, and he is in charge, but then he can also take time out to be with his son. He doesn't micromanage his people. This is leadership. This is manhood. And so for me, that's what was always reflected.
I'm gonna do one more question here, then I want to open it up to the audience to ask questions. Is that okay? Okay, so the last question for me, and then opening up to, um, this might be a loaded question, but you might.
Loaded.
Put it in
Yeah,
the chamber, right?
That's right.
I'm sorry.
Ready, aim, fire. Come on.
Um, why do you, so again, I talked about the statistics of how many folks or writers have written Star Trek novels. And I know you said it depends on the people that are sitting in those chairs making the decisions. But there has to be other ways to shift that and not waiting for the ones with the resources to make there, because if not, I mean, where is another way that we can tell those stories
Well,
that need to be told? Because his story needs to be told over and over again from all these different perspectives, so it's understood the wholeness of this person.
are you, I see, you seem to be asking kind of two different things. One
I
is
might
how do
be.
you get the people who have the power to pay attention to you? The other is, if, how do you work outside the system? How do you
That's
create your own system?
Yeah.
So, you know, if you.
because
if
it
you wanna
seems
be a
like you have
writer,
to.
If you just want to be a writer, you're going to have to work inside the system. But if you don't mind being a writer and a publisher, or a writer and a filmmaker, now you can create your own thing. And it's also possible to create co-ops where I'm a writer, you're a publisher, you're a bookkeeper, you know how to raise money. Let's create a little corporation and make things happen. What Napoleon Hill calls the mastermind principle. So both of these things are possible. When it comes to the people who have the power, who might have an aversion, what you have to do is make sure that you're not, when you're talking to them, you ain't talking about race. You're talking about money. Because if I can talk to you and I can say, we can make this money together, let's go get that money. Now I've got their attention. Okay, because now what they're worried about is, if I have money, do they have less? And by less, do they mean, will they live a shorter period of time? Will they get laid less frequently? You know, it's just that basic stuff. But if I say, you work with me and you're going to have 2 Beamers in your driveway, and your pool's going to be bigger, and your wife is going to be hotter, because I am that bitch. I am the guy who has the answers that you've been looking for. I will not let you down. I'm better than you think I am, and you already think I'm pretty special. If you can walk into that room and that's who you are, well, just kind of put, my wife and I have an expression, I just kind of use it. When we have an opportunity and it scares us because it's so big, it's like, can we do that? We'll look at each other and we'll say, we are that bitch. That's who we are. And everything that you do, you look at the game. If you're going to play the game, you play it to win, damn it. And there's a part of me that plays that game to win. I want to make a lot of money in Hollywood. I want my own damn movie. And just today I got a text saying we got funding for a small film that we're going to do here in Detroit. So it's like, you play to win, okay? And it is absolutely possible. It is easier. I could make a movie on my iPhone. The digital camera in your iPhone is more powerful than $100,000 digital cameras were just 15 years ago, okay? And those were good enough to make theatrical motion pictures with. So you can make a movie, a little movie, and put it on YouTube. And if you attract attention and people like it, start giving you lots of likes, you could go to your dentist and your doctor and you say, you know that money you've got in CDs? If you can give me $10,000, I'll make you partner in making a movie. And you take a look at people like the guy who made El Mariachi and Spike Lee and other things like this. You can make a full theatrical motion picture for $100,000. You can do that if you have proven to yourself that you can create a smaller product that can actually attract people's attention and satisfy them. So you don't put your own $100,000 in it. You build up to that. You might put as much as $1,000 of your own money into it. And then you start attracting investors. If you can't attract investors, how are you going to sell it to an audience? So you look at that as part of the process. This is doable. People are doing their own publishing companies. They're doing their own movies. They're starting web series and then getting deals. Study the people who have the career arcs that you desire. That's what you do. My go-to answer whenever anybody asks me anything is find the people that are already doing it. People who are getting the results that you want, starting with the resources that you've got. What did they do? How did they do it? That's all I ever did in any aspect of my life, is find, what do I want? What are the people who are doing this? How are they doing it? What's your recipe for cooking those pancakes? I'm not going to try to invent my own pancakes. I'm going to find the best tasting pancakes I can get and find your recipe. And then I'm going to do that. That's how you do it. You work backwards from what do you want your life to look like? And if part of that is creating great art, great science fiction, whatever else, there are people who've already done this. Do what they did.
Well, I want to open it up for others.
just-
Oh, please do. I'm
That's all
sorry.
right. I would just
Yeah,
say,
get in there, man.
I would just say that to add to that, everything that Stephen said is absolutely right. For any artist in any medium, I think you also need to have a healthy dose of confidence. I think confidence really helps. I don't really care what people tell me I can or cannot do. I knew I could do this book from day one. This is my first novel, but it didn't. I knew I could deliver it.
That is a major threshold.
Right, and right, it is getting a
Yes.
novel done. And so I knew I could do it.
Let me ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
When you get a victory, do you celebrate?
A little.
No, celebrate a lot.
Okay.
Okay, that's one of the things you're talking about developing confidence.
Right.
There was a lot of pain in writing this book. So when it comes
true.
out, you need to dance. I mean, you need to feel like, yeah, it's just like, feel the good. That's what gives you the feeling that you want to keep pushing yourself.
But for me, I was just like, I knew I'd done a good job. I wasn't sure how good until people started telling me, that I'll get emails from just people saying that this
Maybe we'll go out for dinner tonight. I'm going to force you to celebrate. Be happy. You are that bitch.
Right. But I was also like, and also have a healthy dose of confidence and hone your craft. Writing is one of the few crafts that's free. You just have to read, you have to work at it. It's not like you actually need a paintbrush or oils or a camera. Just write, keep writing. And the more you hone your craft, the better you'll be. And good work will speak for itself as well.
I agree with that. So we're going to do this, if you don't mind, if people can come here and we can get the questions asked. So I'm going to go with our elder first.
Oh, bring the microphone to her.
Yeah.
I can't take it.
Oh,
Sorry. Yes, I'm bringing the elder to the podium. Thank you.
okay.
Go ahead.
My name is Helen Gentry. I am a retired educator, and I wanted to ask this question. I am very elderly, so I'm looking at a long time. I'm now 90. So this is my question, looking at a lifelong. Is science fiction the vanguard of artificial intelligence? Is science fiction the vanguard of artificial intelligence? If we did not have this essence of science fiction, artificial intelligence would not be in existence today.
Okay. Thank you very much.
See, take my seat.
Okay. There is a very real way in which without science fiction having discussed artificial intelligence, we probably would not have artificial intelligence. But then science fiction talks about technology, it talks about humanity, and it talks about things. So it was inevitable that one of the things we would ask is, what happens when our tools become sentient or sapient? Okay. We don't quite have artificial intelligence yet, maybe. On the other hand, maybe we do. And maybe if we won't even recognize it when it's here because it'll be enough different from the way that we think that we can't recognize that. So I would say that science fiction is one aspect of the dream of humanity. We dream, we tell stories, we tell fantasies. Science is a system of thought. Science fiction is asking some very specific questions. What if only, and if this goes on? Robert Heinlein said that, and I kind of like that. So definitely we have asked many times, what happens if our machines start to think? And it's critical that we ask that question before it starts happening. So yeah, I'd say Vanguard.
Derek, what do you
That's
think?
us.
I would say yes as well, but I also agree with Stephen. I think AI would have happened if science fiction hadn't touched on it. But I think what is interesting and even crucial is that science fiction has also told us and taught us what happens when we allow AI to take on too much responsibility or when we give it too much responsibility. And it's very interesting to me that a lot of those messages have gone unheard and unheeded by those that are creating AI. They're doing it just to see if they can, and they're not asking if they should. Now, yes, AI helps different elements of society, but there should be some guardrails around it because we're a lot in some respects we're going towards a Cyberdyne Terminator world a lot quicker than you would think with AI. I mean, you have AI teaching other AI languages that the creators don't even understand the languages.
Yeah, that's called the singularity.
Right.
You know, the point at which computers start programming themselves. Beyond which we have no idea what's going to happen.
Right. So we need to learn those lessons that science fiction tells us as well. And thank you so much for that question.
Okay. And next, you can stand there and ask it. You can stand there and ask. I just did that for the elder. Just letting you know.
First, I just wanted to say, I'm sending love and energy to Tony Todd.
Oh.
Yes.
Yeah, we just learned, yes.
Passed away.
If we say Candyman 3 times, can we have him back?
Please, he passed away 3 days ago, and you know, it was kind of new. We just kind of found out last night, and I dare anyone to watch The Visitor.
Yes.
Without crying for his portrayal of the adult Jake Sisko, because that episode just, you know, that sends me. My question is actually to Derek.
Yeah.
You wrote Benjamin's grandparents so well, and their namesakes are based on two people who I won't name in case you want them to read in the book exactly who they're based on.
We do. We want them to read the book and buy it.
To read the book, so we're not going to name them.
All right.
But they're two very special people. But and this is more of a softball question, but I'm very curious, because the grandparents, you know, when we look at the tapestry of lessons learned,
Right.
you know, and how Benjamin learned those lessons specifically and acutely through his grandparents.
Right.
How did you get, or how did you draw that inspiration, you know, specifically through them? Because there are some very acute lessons that he learns through the grandparents. So I'm very curious where you drew that inspiration and the location of New Orleans, because the location is also a character in that book as well. So I'm very curious how you drew that inspiration.
Thank you very much for those questions.
Thank you for writing this book as well.
Thank you. In regards to the grandparents, I had a special time with my grandparents, and when I was thinking about creating the structure of Benjamin's life, I knew it might be a little bit risky, but what I wanted to do was actually take a step backward in his life and tell the story of his grandparents and how his grandparents affected Joseph, Ben's father, and then how all of those individuals together, his grandparents and his father and mother, affected Benjamin as a young adult growing up into the man that we see him realized as, because that's what happens in life. And if I'm being honest and authentic, then I felt it was necessary not just to tell an autobiography that dealt with like his parents and then his life and then he grows up, but to take it a step back and show his grandparents. And in regards to New Orleans, I've never been, but one of the things I did very early on, I was creating the outline for the book, and right after the outline, before I started writing, once I got the okay for the outline, and before I started writing one word of the book, I just started reading about New Orleans. I watched a lot of Treme, the HBO show, and I just absorbed as much as I could. I went to forums and read what people in New Orleans were saying about their own city. And I wanted to know what it felt like to live there, to be there, to have that history and to understand the history of that town, because it has to be a character in this book if he's lived there. And we see those visuals from time to time on Deep Space Nine, but they're just fleeting. You know, we see the outside of Cisco's, but it's fleeting. I wanted to know more about that. I wanted to know what New Orleans is like in the 23rd, 24th century. Is it like the rest of the world? All of those things that I wanted to fill in. So I took some time to fill that in and make it believable to the audience. So thank you for that question.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask you a while back when you mentioned Creed and the revenue and the recognition that that started creating within the movie industry. So
Not that much.
well, it sounds like it's a changing, a transition point, something.
Well, yeah, things are always kind of moving, but believe me, there was no great, let's have black men having sex.
Well, that's, it wasn't the first at all. But what I was wondering is, though, is there something you feel has changed in society, the zeitgeist that reflects now the ability for that to be even more of a success now than it had been?
Yeah, sure. I mean, if things change over time, if you ask yourself, racism, it relates to this in the way that it's like toxic tribalism. Tribalism is cheering for the home team. Racism is kneecapping the captain of the opposing team. It's different. You're actually believing that that your team is better. That's not the same as cheering for the home team. Okay. The racial problems in America are based on the fact that human beings were being used as machines. They were being used as as an economic leverage point. And in order to have that, you needed a set of beliefs because people wanted to believe that this was a Christian nation of good people. You actually needed to believe that the people you were enslaving were being benefited by the slavery. This is good for them, because otherwise you'd have to deal with the fact that you were using people in a way that very few people can really say, yeah, I'm screwing you over. You're a perfectly nice person. Huh?
Or you just forget they're people.
Yeah, well, that's part of the same thing. I don't think that was that common. If you think that they're not people, you're deluded and insane. If you believe that they're less than, that's, who doesn't think that their tribe is better? I mean, seriously. Easiest thing in the world to do is to get a group of people who are homogeneous to say, yeah, well, we're a little better than those other people over there. That's natural enough that I don't take it personally, even though it's been intensely personal. But what I'm saying is that the belief system outlived the institution it was designed to support. The further you get from the economic necessity, the less need you have to hold on to those beliefs. But it doesn't just die. It decreases by, 20% per generation or something like that. So partially, it's just a matter of given time, and you had that, and then you had Reconstruction, and then you had segregation. You get the easing of it over time, because for lots of different reasons. One of them is that we really like screwing people from other groups. Exogamy is really hot. You have to pass laws to stop people from doing that. So, it naturally, this takes place, this happens all on its own. But also the fact is that the demographics are changing, okay? And as the demographics change, you get more and more people who sacrifice to get into positions of authority and then can make decisions. There's also the fact that in order to have slaves, you have to kind of kill off the warriors of that tribe, and that warrior energy has been trying to come back ever since. And after World War II, an awful lot of black men came back from World War II knowing how to kill white people, and noticed that the civil rights era really happened within one generation of that shit going down. So, I'm cynical. So, all of that stuff works out together. You had plenty of white men having sex with women of other groups in the past over $100 million, Asians and whatnot. And white women certainly enjoy, black men. There's no problem there. This is what it is to be human. So it's inevitable that it will move. I may not like Sylvester Stallone's politics, but I love what he did in giving them the right to use the Rocky formula. because it was the Rocky formula and the comfort people have with that formula and with the character of Rocky that enabled Michael B. Jordan playing Adonis Creed to get across that line and for the audience to accept him enough to accept that aspect of his humanity. This is how change happens. Okay, so you've got Creed and Creed 2 and Creed 3, which are still the only movies where a black man has had sex and made over $100 million. And you have Crazy Rich Asians, which is the only movie in which an Asian man has been able to get over. So clearly things are changing. It's just slower and more painful than we would like. But I have never had a sense that we're going backwards, not significantly. It's just slow and painfully so. And I knew, the first solo novel I did, there was a character who was described as being as dark as a Zulu, and they put a white guy on the cover. And when I looked at that, and nobody at the publishing company would take responsibility for it. My poor editor, Beth Meacham, was just mortified, and I believe her. The chief editor, Susan Allison, I think she kind of blew me off. She said, well, it was the art department. The art department said it was the marketing department. The marketing department said, well, the truck drivers who deliver the books to the, to the truck stops, if they thought this was Shaft in space, they wouldn't have put it. So I realized, all right, if no one takes responsibility, then everyone is guilty. But furthermore, I got a problem here because I don't want to say the problem is white people, because that puts me in the position of thinking we're better than them. In other words, that turns me into the same thing that I'm having a problem with. So I had to say, well, how does this just relate to what human beings are? What is it that we do that we've ended up with these problems in the world? I had to go through that for the benefit of my own soul. So I see that change as being a constant thing. If it's still a matter of, Halle Berry or Zendaya, whatever, has to, be only with white guys in order to make the big bucks, don't hate the player, hate the game. It's like this is, we're playing a long game here, and I've seen a lot of change over the course of my life. So the simple answer is, yeah, I see change, and I'm helping to make the change too.
And that Rocky character has had what, 6, 7 films, just Rocky. And I think it's because fundamentally it's a very human character.
Yes.
And so then you take that human character that's easily relatable to all of us, and you put that template onto Adonis Creed, and what you're saying is, yeah, it's a black guy, but it could be anybody, and of course the demographics, and I think just generationally,
Yes.
people are just like, well, why aren't we seeing this kind of character for our generation?
Yeah, white kids don't
Why
need
not,
to own what their parents needed to own because their grandparents owned it.
Right.
They don't need to. They would say, let's just get together. You're cute. I mean, seriously, we can trust the human heart. We're okay.
Didn't
Human
Adonis
beings are kind of cool. I like them.
Didn't Creed 3 hit $1 billion?
No, it did really well.
It did really well.
Yeah.
It did really well. And he directed that.
Written money.
Which
That's
shows
right.
that people are identifying they're identifying with the character. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Next.
Well, go ahead.
Hello, Steve, thank you so much for telling me about this. I'm in a fire dance group.
Oh, great. Yeah, by the way, I do a weekly Zoom call, and if you like the way that I am, go to StephenBarnesList.com. StephenBarnesList.com. You get on my mailing list. You can come to our weekly Zooms, and we have a great time. Anyway, go ahead.
So I wanted to go back to being truthful and authentic in our writing. I mean, this kind of goes along with his question. I have a newsletter called Honestly Sis, where I really talk about not only my creative journey, but also my spiritual journey. And throughout that process, I learned a lot about myself.
May I ask you a question? And please forgive me for stopping your flow here. Does your spiritual journey and creative journey, do they overlap?
Yeah, they're the same. Yeah,
Excellent.
that's why I talk about it.
Excellent. That's what I wanted to hear.
Great.
Yeah, but throughout that process, as I am being truthful and honest about not only my life and my spiritual journey, I also find myself talking about my parents and my great-grandparents, because I'm trying to show the pattern, and I'm also trying to show other people how I was able to recognize my pattern to heal myself. But when you get into that type of work, the people closest to you can get hurt. And so recently I wrote a letter that really had my family very mad at me, and it kind of made me feel like, I don't want to get emotional, but it really—
It's okay, honey.
It really hurt because I felt like the purpose of what I was writing was not to be hurtful.
Yes.
But And it's like, I want to keep doing this work because I believe in it.
No, you will keep doing this
I
work.
will keep
You have
doing this
to.
work
You have
because
to.
I believe in it, but it's like, how do you get beyond?
Well, first of all, forgive yourself. Okay, you were doing the best you can. Learn. So you might need to be a little bit more oblique. You change a gender, a guy did it, have it be a woman. You change things, you scramble things, you take pieces from people and mix them up together so it isn't anybody in particular. But there's no way that you can walk this path without bumping your shins at times. So what you're experiencing is totally natural. It's totally human. I totally honor your journey.
And never curtail or stop yourself because of how it may impact and feel to others. If you sincerely believe you are doing this thing from an authentic place of love and honesty, then it is your responsibility to go forward.
Yeah,
It really is.
you'll screw up,
Yeah.
and people may not like it and people may not buy it.
Right.
But ultimately, you're writing for the little girl you used to be and the old woman you're going to be on your deathbed. Okay? And that's your journey. And you're not really ultimately responsible to anyone but your own soul. But if you want money and you want friends, then you have to think about stuff like that. But ultimately, it starts with you. If given that I'm going to take care of me first, can I make that money and can I have a relationship with other human beings? But your primary responsibility is to take care of you, because nobody else can, and nobody's going in your grave but you. You're going alone.
I often ask myself, how would I feel at 80, at 90, if I get there, if I'm in a situation and I keep my mouth shut, or keep my head down, or say I can't do that thing. How will I feel at 80 and 90? And then I do the thing, because I don't want to be feeling like crap at 80 or 90. On top of being 80 or 90, you don't want to be feeling like crap for something that you could have just, you understand what I'm saying? So yeah.
Steve, I have a question, very brief. You've mentioned martial arts, the role of martial arts in your life. And as someone who has done, martial arts.
Excellent. What art do you practice, sweetheart?
Well, I'll say Aikido. It came back when I started. I was Jukudo.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So, I just wanted you to say something about how you came to that.
Because I got my ass beat. I was bullied, and so it's like, the girls used to beat me up. I mean, it's like, step on Barnes to get onto the ladder. And I had that fear so it's like black people did not think I was much of anything. So I was a little four-eyed, pot-bellied nerd, with no skills at all. And then, like I said, my mother told me in no uncertain terms, if you let white people know how smart you are, they will kill you. So I had a tremendous feeling of threat. So I always wanted to learn how to fight. But a day came when I realized it wasn't really learning how to fight that I wanted. It was something else. And what happened was that there was a kid named Rudy. I've written about this in a couple different times. I'm trying to work it into a screenplay right now. I was in junior high school, and there was a kid named Rudy who was a little fire plug of a bully. And he pulled a pair of brass knucks out on me when I was in like 4th grade.
Wow.
Yeah, he was a terror. And one day he got into his head that I had narked on him, that I had sent him to the principal's office. I was accidentally in the wrong place at the wrong time, and that's what he thought. So he said he's going to kick my ass after school. So after school, I try to walk home as fast as I can, and he and his brother and 3 of his friends caught up with me. And Rudy starts, I'm on Washington Boulevard in Los Angeles, a major four-lane street in that neighborhood. He's like hitting me in the face and punching me in the stomach and stuff like this, saying, come on and fight. And I knew, I'm like holding my books. I'm just this little kid. I mean, Jesus Christ, I don't, and I couldn't fight Rudy. I knew I couldn't. And if by some miracle I fought him and I beat him, then I'd have to fight his brother Oliver, who was bigger than him. And if by some great miracle I beat Oliver, he's got 3 friends with him. So it's like, what do I do? Literally what I do, because he's hitting me and hitting me. And that sense of being a man, that nascent sense of don't mess with me, just that was dying. I felt it every time he hit me and spit in my face. I could feel it dying. It's like, I can't do anything, but I have to do something. I can't do anything, but I have to do something. And finally, something broke inside me. And I just said, I'd rather die than die in pieces. And I put my books down and I walked out into the center of Washington Boulevard. And I stood on the double yellow line with cars and trucks whizzing past me on both sides. And I looked at him and I said, come out here and do that. And he looked at me and he realized he'd pushed me beyond social games. He'd pushed me to a different place. If he came out there, I was going to push him in front of a truck. I was going to kill him. And he knew it. And I looked at him and he looked at me and he blinked first. And he said, oh man, that nigga's crazy. And they all walked away laughing, but he never messed with me again. And I walked out of the street and I picked up my books and I realized I had found something that no one had ever told me about, that there is a place within yourself that you can go. And if you're there, you're different. There's no place for the bully to insert themselves. And I said at that moment, I don't care how long it takes. I'm going to find out what that is. I'm going to find out how to get back there. This is what I've been looking for my whole life. It took me 24 years of training to earn my first black belt because I was dealing with so much fear, so much bullying. But I knew that if I did not finish that journey, that I would never belong to myself. I'd never be free. I'd always be afraid. Everybody has their own journey. I'm not saying other people need that. But I didn't need the techniques and the fitness and the targeting and the strategy and the philosophy. I needed to know that space that can be expressed in the words, I'm ready to die and I'm ready to take you with me. That's it. Once you've got that, the rest of it's just interesting games. I needed that to be this. Because my dad wasn't there and my mom couldn't give it to me. Simple as that.
I appreciate it.
Hi, my name is Avion.
Avion? I've had your water.
I'm 26 now. I also grew up being bullied, not to the physical point, how you were, but mainly the mental point. So you always had it in your heart that you were going to be here one day. You knew you were going to be big. So how did you get past procrastination and then the fear of failure? Because you deal with bullying, and sometimes that can create like a box that you can't
Okay.
get out of.
So first, let me see. Do you have some courage? You have courage?
Yeah.
You do? All right. Good. Procrastination, remember the following. Write this down. Procrastination is perfectionism masquerading as quality control. You are afraid to not be perfect. And the trick is, you can't be perfect. You know, the image of the most perfect human being who ever lived, avatar of peace and joy, Jesus Christ, got nailed to a cross. What hope do you have? Get over it. And then say, given the fact that you will never make everyone happy, make yourself happy. Decide to make yourself happy. Right now, look at me right now and say the following words. I am that bitch.
I am that bitch.
There you go. All the rest is just figuring out how to make that real. Just figuring out how to make that real. There are countless books and lectures on how to turn yourself into the person that you need to be. I would suggest that you aim at having 1 hour a day where you're doing nothing more than inputting the most positive thoughts. Go to YouTube, find the positive thinkers, the great philosophers. You spend 1 hour every day before you start doom scrolling or answering emails or anything else. You give yourself the gift of courage, that you are now the mother of the little girl inside you. And if anyone messes with your dreams, they're messing with that little girl. And if they mess with that little girl, the daughter you love more than life itself, what are you going to do? And what are you going to tell them? There you go. And I am your ally. I am your ally. You're younger than my daughter.
Wow.
You know, I could almost have had a grandchild your age. So those who want to walk the path of mastery and master their own lives, if nothing else, are my children. Okay? If I can be of aid to you, you reach out to me and I will remind you who you are. You are that bitch.
And I would tell you that if the bullying is physical, mental, any kind of bullying, microaggressions, I've never met a bully in my life that wasn't an individual that A, wasn't insecure on their own, B, didn't see something in me that they want to snuff out.
That's so good.
Right?
Would you go on? Would you explore that a little bit more, please,
Okay,
Derek?
okay. These individuals, whoever they are, they see something in you that either they wish they had, that they say, oh, wow, this person is doing this thing, or this person has confidence in themselves, or this person is shining brightly. And I feel like I'm not, so I need to snuff that out, or maybe it'll make me feel better about myself if I'm mean to them. If I can force them to their knees, then I'll be taller.
Okay, and there's another one. There's another one. This is good.
This is right.
This is really good.
This is
that's the kind of statement you made right there that we could build this entire thing around.
That's right.
So let me. I had old friends reject me for saying that it's important to be honest and kind.
So have I.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it isn't just that they're trying to tear you down. They're trying to say you have an open heart.
Yes.
I believe you to survive in the world, you have to have a closed heart.
Yes.
If you can resist
Yes.
their bullying, you
Yes.
are showing them a better way.
Yes.
And in
Yes.
one way, they are hoping that you beat them. They are hoping that they cannot tear you down because you are showing them that you can be a good, decent, loving human being and still be strong. They don't believe it.
They don't believe it. I've met a lot of people that have, as Stephen's saying, in some sense, failed at those things. And then say, why haven't you failed? Why haven't you? I have to now make them fail. One of my old jobs, when I got my first short story and it took first place, they were like, oh, we're not giving you enough work.
Ooh.
Okay? And I was like, what? It's like, oh.
Crabs in a basket.
Okay? They're like, we're not giving you enough work. And that told me a lot. Okay?
Yeah.
And that's why I'm coming back to confidence.
Yes.
You have that light. It's obvious,
Look, you cannot say that there were 300 years of oppression without saying, and there is residual damage.
That's right.
If there was oppression, then there is damage. And the damage shows up in our families,
That's right.
in our communities, in our own belief that we can accomplish our dreams as good, moral people. So every one of you who stands up, black, white, whatever, and says, I've had enough of that negative stuff in the past. We were doing the best we could. We can do better now. Every person who does that creates the room for one other person to stand up and say, maybe I can have my dreams too. Maybe I can have courage too. Maybe. I believe in humanity, and I believe I have a special love of the intersection of race and gender, which I think is the knot that humanity is dealing with. So black women, I really want to be of service to my sisters because I feel that there is something important to untie there that will benefit all of humanity. You have a responsibility to tell your stories.
Sure.
You have a responsibility. You need to be a warrior for your own heart. And that's not about, I'm willing to die. No, I'm willing to kill. I will destroy anything Well, the way my teacher puts it is when he fights somebody, he fights to kill them. Not literally, he will kill the part of them that wants to hurt him. You see? So it's like your task is to walk this world with power and beauty. Everything else is just a means to that end.
Yeah.
Okay?
And fight for that.
And to fight for that.
Right.
Thank you so much.
So following up on both the subjects of bullying and also women empowerment, I'd like to bring this back to Star Trek and talk about the point
Sure.
of the last series that was canceled, Star Trek Discovery. The only other series that was actually had a black lead, the only series that had a black female lead that had bullying occurring online in regards to the quality of the show, quality of her performance, not unlike the same things Avery Brooks suffered under. And I'd like for you to talk a little bit about the toxicity that's in fandom, that you see it in Star Trek, you definitely see it in Star Wars, and you also see it in other genre shows. Like, we now have a black Doctor Who, and he's been assaulted. In regards, but all online because people can't stand a multicultural world.
They're afraid of it. I mean, one of the biggest factors in the last election was tribal extinction fear. You know, feeling we're being outbred, we're going to be outvoted, democracy isn't working for us anymore. Let's create more of an autocracy. Who's a powerful person who can give us the things that we need to protect ourselves and so forth. So on. Very human, and I don't feel that there was enough clarity about that.
Sure.
But you're the Star Trek expert, please.
Okay, well, I'll take Star Trek, you take
Star Wars.
Star Wars. Well, in regards to Discovery, there's a point in Discovery, like the first episode, where I realized there's more women on the bridge than there are men. And I didn't have a problem with that, but there are specifically men that have a problem with that. It's a beautiful character, Michael Burnham, the way she was done, the way she was written. There are people of color in that writing room. So writing that future and writing that show, and you could tell, I think there are people that are threatened by that, unfortunately. And I've met Star Trek fans that they don't like Burnham, they don't like what she represents, but they tell me they love Star Trek, and I'm like, well, if you love Star Trek and if you love a future where from TOS till now, 60 almost years now, it's apparent that Gene Roddenberry wanted something that was set up with diversity was just the norm. How can you may not like a particular thing, but why is it you really don't like that? We need to think about that. And I've had people tell me that they will think about it. I've had people refuse to and walk away, you know, but I think people need to think about why a woman of color is such a threat to them. Because it's a wonderful character, it was a wonderful show. It just kept getting better. It should have gotten at least 2 more seasons. I love Discovery. I love Discovery. Yeah.
When Lucasfilm came to me and asked me if I would write a novel about Mace Windu in the Star Wars universe, I had just walked out of the writing room for Friday the 13th, for Crystal Lake, the Brian Fuller's Friday the 13th television series. So I had plenty of money in the bank. And I got this call. And I kind of thought to myself, you want me to write a Mace Windu novel? And I wanted to know, would you let me humanize him? Would you let him be an actual human being? Because the one thing I knew about Mace Windu is he wasn't a human being. He was an archetype. You know, they saw he killed people and barked orders. But they couldn't imagine, and this scene is not in the book, but they could not imagine him dancing around his kitchen in his underwear cooking pancakes. You know, he's not a human being. He's not a person. So I got on the phone to my agent, found out what was going on, and then I talked with the editor, and I said, I've got 2 questions, one of which I will tell you, the other one I will tell anyone who's actually read the book. But the first question was how many zeros, and they passed that test. Oh, yes, they did. The other question had to do with his humanity. Would you let me such and such? They said yes. So I knew that there are problems. I've commented about the MCU, and we've had problems with Star Wars. We saw what happened with Finn, where it was very clear the arc that was originally intended for Finn. It was very clear that they changed their minds in a way that made no sense, but made no sense story-wise, but did make sense in terms of fantasy is, you know, God, how do I say this? I will say it honestly, but I'm not excluding myself from this. The more time you spend immersed in fantasy, the less likely you are to be happy with reality. You know, I have been in fandom for a long time, and I'm willing to defend that comment. People are looking for senses of you know, am I powerful? Am I beautiful? What do I need to do? And so if you have people who, look at fantasy, they want to see things that look like themselves. That's just what we do. And we have to be honest about that. I think that we can be honest about that we can look at each other and say race and gender and sexual preferences are very interesting, but none of them have to do with the soul of what we are. These are just different ways that the soul manifests. If I can look at it that way, then I can look at things like racism and say, black people were white, they'd be acting like white people and vice versa. If men were women, we'd be acting like women and vice versa. I don't have any crap about that. And therefore I can have that discussion without putting people down. These are these principles. Fantasy has operated to reinforce the worldview of the people who created it and published it and consume it. That's just natural. If you want to interrupt that pattern, it's not surprising that people say, but that's not my fantasy. That doesn't look like the way I saw it. So if I write this book, I literally will have people saying, but Mace Windu doesn't have a personality. Mace Windu is a cipher. We like him that way. I bet you do. That's very comforting, isn't it? We're not people. Well, guess what? I am a person. And I'm in your face about that. It's like, I love you, but I will not take any shit from you. I will not take it from anybody. I got more days behind me than ahead of me, and I'm perfectly willing to die removing you from the gene pool. It's like, I will write what I see. And what I see is, if I'm going to write about Mace Windu, I'm going to go deep into him, but I'm also going to be sure that there are white characters, because I don't like being excluded. And when I wrote Lion's Blood, my novel about Islamic Africans colonizing the Americas, bringing white slaves here, my commitment was to have my white characters were going to be deeper and better and more complex and more human than I had ever seen a white writer do for black characters. I was not going to let them tell me who I am. You can't do that. It's too late. You let me live and grow up. I'm a grown-ass man, and I know I'm headed for the grave. And I love my life, and I will spend the rest of my life making this world better for the next generation. Then I will pass that torch. Here's the torch, Derek. Thank you. Now it's his job to run with it, and then it'll be his son's job to run. It's natural that people do that. They want the world to be what's comforting to them. They want the world to tell them that they're the most beautiful, the most powerful, the sexiest. That's just natural. Everybody does that. The only problem is pretending that's not true. Yeah. There were 3 circles, Venn diagrams, that I have when I decided to write this. I wanted to write a good Star Wars novel for the fans. I don't care about Lucasfilm once they've signed off on it. My obligation then is to the fans, of course, the people who dream. And then I wanted to write a good science fiction novel, because that's what I am. That's my primary thing. I'm not a horror. I can write horror, but I'm not a horror writer. My wife can write science fiction, but she's not a science fiction writer. And I wanted to write a good Stephen Barnes novel. People who, you can probably guess some things about the way I'm going to write based on the way I talk about things. The people who have read my work expect certain values from me. They understand there are going to be certain themes that are going to come up, and certain ways I'm going to do things. And I wanted to be sure that they were happy, because that means that I'm being honest to me. So to the degree that those 3 circles overlap, we'll see how successful the book is. But if people complain about the very things I wanted to fix, they're just saying, I was part of the problem. They're raising their hand saying, I was part of the problem. Yes, you were. And God bless you, bless your heart. And I'm gonna be me.
We got 2 more questions. I want to make sure we get it through them in the next 5 minutes or so, and then we'll close out for today. Is that good? I know. Sad.
Right?
Hey, I'll roll with you. You want to tell your?
Don't kill me. Can I change the subject a little bit?
No.
Well, I'm going to do so. Would you consider H.G. Wells in the Star Wars universe and Jules Verne in the Star Trek universe as far as writing?
No, H.G. Wells and Jules Verne were both science fiction writers.
Yeah.
Okay, they were not
Jules
fantasists.
Verne, like when you wanted to go from the Earth to the Moon, he provided the mathematical formula to do so.
Yes.
H.G. Wells, when he went to go to the moon, he said, "Okay, Cavorite, you just throw it on the spear and then away you go."
Yeah, but that's okay. You know,
No, I wasn't
no. What I'm saying is they were both science fiction writers. Star Trek is science fantasy. Nobody cares what powers the Death Star.
Star Wars.
You know, Star Wars cares. That's right. You know, engineering is not a big factor in Star Trek, Star Wars rather. Okay.
So that's kind of like,
It's wizards and dragons with lightsabers, you know, and spaceship image systems. If you get the fact that fact, so I knew when I did this, for instance, that taking a more of a science fiction approach, that even in a fantasy world, geology created those planets, and so I would literally, I wanted to show how Mace Windu thinks. So when he goes to this planet, he's brilliant, and his brain is analyzing things about the social structure and the biology and the geology and so forth, because this is the ground on which he's going to have to fight. So the more you understand it, the better. So I did that, and some of the people did not like that idea. You know, don't tell me he's really smart. I mean, he's black, isn't he? No, I didn't. But yes, but no, H.G. Wells, you know, the first generation of science fiction writers knew science and they knew literature.
Yeah.
The next generation knew the classics, people who had known that. Okay. The generation after that, by the time you get to the 60s, was starting to ask questions about how do we raise the literary quality. So you had the new wave, Harlan Ellison and Vonda McIntyre and Ursula K. Le Guin and people like that. And then the generation after that started becoming kind of a synthesis of a lot of those different things. It's very interesting. They're wonderful people. But that first generation, the H.G. Wells and so forth, I don't know what Jules Verne's background was, but H.G. Wells was a historian. He knew the sciences. So he was a bad mother. You know, so these people were doing the best they could. He cared about the adventure we would have on the moon. And there was no known way of getting there. I mean, Jules Verne, you know, if you launch people inside a cannon shell, they turn into jelly, you know, within a tenth of a second after you launch them. So it's just as much fantasy as Cavorite.
but the calculations are
Right.
I don't know if you heard this when we were talking before this started, but we were saying that Star Wars is the exploration within, you know, that light and dark balance, and how that exploration within ourselves affects our world, affects the galaxy, affects the cosmos. So it really applies really well to fantasy, you know.
Brother, we didn't say that. You said
well,
that.
I said it. Well,
Take responsibility.
okay, thank
that was
you.
a great statement.
I said it.
Own it.
Okay, I said it.
Damn.
And start. Right, exactly. And Star Trek is that exploration outside, an exploration to see, you know, where the next challenge is, you know, and can we make friends and have a relationship with other species, with other people, and then again how that reflects on us. But it's the
That's true.
exploration on the
Star
outside.
Wars makes the assumption that we're, you know, all the different pieces are going to get along.
Right.
Yeah, it's not the same thing. That's true.
Right.
There's no first contact.
There is
in
none.
Star Wars.
Right. It's all
Yeah.
everyone knows each other in Star Wars already. So that's at least the way I see it. And if this man,
Oh,
is
no,
saying-
that's
if he's
specific.
saying that's it, then that's it. So
Yeah.
Yeah, you said it.
That's it.
And
Hi, thank you, everybody, for presenting this program. I have a question. I was sitting over there listening and scrolling through, it's like, I'm gonna buy a book, et cetera, et cetera. Which one of your books would you recommend that I purchase for my 15-year-old grandson? Okay, he has just started right at the hip with me because I'm a Star Trek fanatic, science fiction for years. And he has turned me on to, and he likes it, he's addicted now. And he has turned me on to anime. And I didn't know, like, those movies had so much.
OneNote and stuff like that.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm.
So I think it'd benefit him if I gave him a book by a black male author. But when I
You can
was
try this
going
one.
through the
Seriously.
stuff, it was like stuff that I would read.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure, and from a black male perspective, that'd be a good book for a 15-year-old young.
Yeah, I think Glass Abyss, I wrote it knowing that some of the Glass Abyss, it's this one. I wrote it knowing that there would be young readers. I actually named one character after my grandniece, who is, only 5 or 6 right now, but I wanted to be sure that she had something that she could, but in terms of, but I think that it works well for young people, but it also goes there. I mean, I wrote an adult novel, but I made sure, Devil's Wake, the novel that I did with my wifey Pooh, I'd have no problem with that. We're actually, we're thinking, there's a third novel in that, Lion's Blood, Devil's Wake, and, rather, Devil's Wake, Domino Falls, and the third one is called Freak Show.
Well, if I might add, I wanted to, whatever one you all decide, to include some of the empowerment things and themes that you were telling the other people and how to think.
Yes, Glass Abyss.
Glass of B-I-Z? What is it?
AB.
This is it right
Yeah,
here.
the Star Wars one, yeah.
Glass
The Glass Abyss.
Okay. Oh, you just have to have it.
Yes, I just happen to have one.
For,
By the way, you fit it.
yeah,
Oh, I'll get it typed later. Okay. Glass of this. Okay, thank you. And I'll just pick
for,
that up.
for my book, I would say, ma'am, I would say also, the Autobiography of Benjamin Sisko.
Yes.
Definitely.
For a few reasons, though,
Right.
to answer your question, because it's a father talking to his son,
Right.
which is really good, and it has relationships. It has relationships throughout the future, but relationships in the Sisko family, female relationships, and how men deal with women. So that's great for a 15-year-old. And he said he's into Star Trek, right?
Well, there
Right,
you
then,
go.
Then there you go. So
That sounds like that would be great for
that's
him.
great for him as well. So I think you can't go wrong with both of these.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Oh, that's an interesting question.
Purchase it and you send me a signed copy.
No, I think that, I think if you bought a copy, my email address is Stephen@diamondhour.com. Stephen@diamondhour.com. You buy a copy of the book, you email me, I'll send you an address, you send me the book in a self-addressed stamped envelope, and I'll sign it and send it back.
Yeah, and for no,
Right now, you won't say it
no,
right now.
fortunately.
No, darn it.
Shame on you.
Not this.
Can I sell her this book?
I know the library did, but Okay, so is that Stephen at Diamond Hour spelled out
HOUR, diamondhour.com. Yeah, there's a people. Yeah, I know.
Well, shame on us.
If you, like I said, Stephen@diamondhour.com is my email address. Stephen Barnes List is my mailing list. It gets you to my Zoom call. If you're interested in the philosophical thing of saying, I've finally written a book about my worldview on this. It's called The Magic Formula. It's a way of creating luck in your life. I accidentally came across it in certain ways. In other ways, it's a lifetime of study. And you can check it out at realheroesjourney.com. realheroesjourney.com.
And anyone wanting to buy and get a signed copy, you go to my website, Derek Attico, DEREKATTICO.com. Just shoot me an email, and I'm setting up a way for me to get signed copies to you.
That's wonderful. You're an impressive young man.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well,
Impressive old man. No.
I hate to do this to y'all, but this has been a wonderful conversation. I'm glad that you all came out on a Saturday when it's sunny in November. This don't happen all the time, so this isn't our usual weather.
Full house.
Full house. I think most of us came out here because we love both of these guys as writers, but also definitely I can speak for myself. I'm definitely a fan of Avery Brooks and what work he did in this particular character. And I also think that science fiction, speculative fiction, writing, reading, all these things are things that are going to make us better people as we move beyond 2024, 2025, and all of that. And I think that's important for all of us to know. So keep reading, definitely support these persons, these people, these great writers here, And I do thank you all for coming out. The artwork that you see on the walls will be up until the end of this month, maybe a little longer. There's no rush to take it off.
Before you all leave, can I just ask a favor of all of y'all? Can we all take a picture together?
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So just stay in your seats, and we'll do it. You wanna? We'll get up, and we'll take a picture.
Okay, well, actually, why don't somebody stand over there?
Oh, and we'll do it like that. Okay.
He'll do it. Get the ensign to do it.
Smile like you know everybody.
Got to do it one more time. Don't leave. Well, maybe two more times. You got two cameras up here. Yep.
Smile like you did the last time.
Can't step in the same piece of water twice.
Donna, you want to get in there too?
No, I'm good. I'm a creator. I don't need to be in the picture still.
There was that much awesomeness in one picture.
Yeah, I couldn't.
Oh, yeah. That's it.
Oh, this is a good one. Come in. All right. Yeah. All right. Thank you all.
All right. All right. Have a good weekend. As far as the work that we do, meaning DMJStudio, we do all kinds of exhibits and things like this. So just go to DMJStudio.com and you'll see. Oh,
It's okay.
we'll get that. It's acrylic. It's fine. It's fine. So DMJStudio.com. You all have a good night.
Thank you so much.